Picture this. You're lying in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if your life has any meaning. Maybe you're questioning whether that promotion really matters, or if your ex was right about you being emotionally unavailable. But here's the thing. While you're having your little existential meltdown, you're actually hurtling through space at 67,000 miles per hour on a wet rock that's somehow perfectly positioned to not kill you instantly. And that's just the beginning of how absolutely insane our cosmic neighborhood really is. See, we like to think Earth is this stable, sensible place where we can build civilizations and argue about pineapple on pizza. But zoom out just a little bit, and you'll realize we're living in what can only be described as the universe's most chaotic group therapy session. Every planet in our solar system is dealing with its own brand of cosmic trauma, and honestly, they make your worst family dinner look like a peaceful meditation retreat. You know what's wild? We spend so much time worrying about our terrestrial problems, bills, relationships, whether we're living up to our potential, that we completely miss the fact that we're residents of the most dysfunctional celestial soap opera ever written. Each planet is like that one friend who always has drama, except instead of texting you at midnight about their relationship problems, they're dealing with acid rain that could melt your face off or winds that would make a Category 5 hurricane look like a gentle breeze. But here's where it gets really interesting. These aren't just random balls of rock and gas floating around aimlessly. Each world tells a story about what happens when physics gets creative, when a universe decides to experiment with the limits of what's possible. And somehow, in the middle of all this cosmic chaos, we ended up on the one planet that's just neurotic enough to support life, but not so insane that we all die immediately. Think about it. If you lined up all the ways the universe could have arranged our solar system, the odds of getting something this perfectly imperfect are mind-boggling. It's like winning the lottery, except instead of money, you get the privilege of existing long enough to wonder why you exist at all. So while you're lying there at 3 a.m., questioning everything, remember that you're not just having an existential crisis. You're participating in the greatest cosmic experiment ever conducted. You're a conscious observer in a solar system that reads like it was designed by someone who took way too much creative liberty with the laws of physics. And honestly, that's either the most terrifying or most beautiful thing you'll ever contemplate. Probably both, which somehow makes perfect sense in our beautifully broken corner of space. Ready to meet your neighbors? Trust me, after this tour, your own problems are going to seem refreshingly normal. Let's start with Mercury, the solar system's overachiever with serious commitment issues. This little planet is basically that friend who drinks way too much espresso and can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. Mercury completes an orbit around the Sun in just 88 Earth days, which means it's having 4 birthdays while you're still trying to figure out your New Year's resolutions. But here's where Mercury's story gets psychologically fascinating. You'd think being the closest planet to the Sun would make it the hottest place in our solar system, right? Wrong. Mercury has the most bipolar temperature swings you can imagine. During the day, it reaches 800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. At night, it drops to minus 300 degrees. That's a 1,100 degree temperature swing, which makes your mood swings look absolutely adorable. Why does this happen? Because Mercury is commitment phobic when it comes to atmosphere. While other planets wrap themselves in protective atmospheric blankets, Mercury said, "Nah, I'm good," and decided to face the universe completely naked. No atmosphere means no way to distribute heat, so one side bakes while the other freezes. It's like the planetary equivalent of someone who refuses to wear appropriate clothing for the weather because they want to feel free. And get this, Mercury's day is longer than its year. Let that sink in for a moment. It takes Mercury 176 Earth days to complete one rotation, but only 88 days to orbit the Sun. Imagine if your workday lasted longer than the time between your birthdays. You'd literally age faster than you could experience a full day-night cycle. That's not just inconvenient. That's existentially disturbing. The more you learn about Mercury, the more it seems like it's actively trying to confuse anyone who studies it. Scientists call this 3:2 spin-orbit resonance, but I call it planetary anxiety disorder. Mercury spins exactly 3 times for every 2 times it orbits the Sun, creating this weird cosmic dance where the Sun appears to move backward across the sky sometimes. If you lived on Mercury, You'd occasionally watch the sun rise, stop, go backward, then rise again. Talk about mixed signals. But perhaps the most human thing about Mercury is how it deals with relationships. It's tidally locked in this weird dance with the sun where the same regions always face the star during perihelion, the closest approach. It's like Mercury is so nervous about commitment that it only shows its good side when things get most intense. Meanwhile, there are parts of Mercury that exist in permanent shadow, never seeing sunlight, where ice actually exists despite being on the closest planet to our star. Think about the philosophical implications here. On Mercury, you could literally stand at the terminator, the boundary between day and night, with one foot in blazing desert heat and the other on ancient ice. You'd be simultaneously experiencing the most extreme heat and cold in our solar system. It's a perfect metaphor for the human condition. We're all standing on the edge between extremes, trying to find balance in a universe that seems designed to test our limits. Mercury also has these weird scarps, massive cliffs that can stretch for hundreds of miles. Scientists think these formed as the planet cooled and shrank, like a grape becoming a raisin. Except instead of getting wrinkly, Mercury developed these dramatic geological scars. The planet literally bears the physical evidence of its own existential shrinking, which feels uncomfortably relatable. The real kicker? Mercury has been doing this manic dance for billions of years, and it's going to keep doing it long after we're gone. There's something both comforting and terrifying about that consistency. While we're down here worrying about 5-year plans and career goals, Mercury is out there having the same identity crisis it's been having since before multicellular life existed on Earth. So next time you're feeling overwhelmed by the pace of modern life, remember Mercury, a world where the days are longer than the years, where you can freeze and fry simultaneously, and where the sun sometimes moves backward across the sky. Suddenly, your problems seem pretty manageable, don't they? But if you think Mercury has issues, wait until you meet Venus, our solar system's most beautiful disaster. Venus is what happens when Mother Nature decides to create the most gorgeous nightmare possible. From Earth, Venus looks absolutely stunning, the brightest object in our night sky after the moon, earning it the romantic nickname, Evening Star. Ancient civilizations were so smitten, they named it after the goddess of love and beauty. But here's the thing about Venus. It's basically the solar system's most successful catfish. Because once you get past that beautiful exterior, Venus is pure, concentrated hell. Let's start with the atmosphere, which is 96% carbon dioxide with clouds made of sulfuric acid. Not the fun kind of acid from the 60s. We're talking industrial strength, skin-melting, metal-dissolving acid. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is 90 times stronger than Earth's, equivalent to being nearly a mile underwater in our oceans. If you could somehow survive the 860-degree surface temperature, hot enough to melt copper, you'd be crushed like a soda can and dissolved by acid rain simultaneously. It's like Venus looked at all the ways a planet could kill you and said, why choose just one? But the real psychological thriller here is Venus's backstory. Scientists believe Venus might have once been a lot like Earth, maybe even habitable, with oceans and a mild climate. So what happened? Venus experienced what researchers call a runaway greenhouse effect. Essentially, Venus had a climate change crisis so severe it turned the entire planet into a pressure cooker that makes our worst climate fears look like a mild inconvenience. Think about the existential horror of that for a moment. Venus might have been Earth's twin, possibly even harboring life. And then, it all went wrong. Catastrophically, irreversibly wrong. It's like looking at a parallel universe where everything that could go bad did go bad. And now Venus serves as a cosmic warning about what happens when planetary systems collapse. And here's where Venus gets really psychologically twisted. It rotates backward. While every other planet in our solar system spins in the same general direction, Venus decided to be contrarian and rotate in the opposite direction. Scientists aren't entirely sure why, but the leading theory is that Venus got hit by something massive early in its history. So massive it literally flipped the planet upside down. Imagine being so traumatized by a single event that you spend the rest of eternity doing everything backward. That's Venus. One bad day billions of years ago, and now the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. Venus has been having an identity crisis for longer than complex life has existed on Earth. But wait, there's more existential weirdness. A day on Venus lasts 243 Earth days, while a Venus year is only 225 Earth days. This means that on Venus, a day is longer than a year. If you live there, you'd celebrate your birthday before you'd experienced a full day-night cycle. The sun would rise in the west, creep across the sky for months, set in the east, and then you'd have months of darkness before it happened again. It's like Venus is stuck in the world's worst jet lag, permanently. The surface of Venus tells an equally disturbing story. It's covered in volcanic features, over 1,600 major volcanoes, the landscape. But here's the weird part. Scientists can't find any impact craters older than about 500 million years. On a planet that should be covered in ancient scars from billions of years of cosmic bombardment, Venus appears to have erased its entire history. The leading theory: Venus periodically resurfaces itself through massive, planet-wide volcanic events. Every few hundred million years, Venus essentially has a complete planetary breakdown, melting and reforming its entire surface. It's like the ultimate form of self-harm. Venus literally destroys and rebuilds itself whenever the pressure becomes too much. But perhaps the most unsettling thing about Venus is how it holds up a mirror to our own planetary anxieties. Venus shows us what runaway climate change actually looks like. Not just warmer temperatures and rising sea levels, but the complete breakdown of everything that makes a planet habitable. It's the ultimate cautionary tale about what happens when atmospheric chemistry goes wrong. And yet, Venus continues to be beautiful from a distance. Its thick atmosphere creates stunning cloud formations that reflect sunlight, making it brilliant and alluring in our sky. It's the perfect metaphor for how the most toxic situations can often appear the most attractive from the outside. Soviet scientists managed to land several probes on Venus in the 1970s and 80s, but even their most robust spacecraft survived less than 2 hours on the surface before being crushed, melted, and dissolved. Venus doesn't just kill visitors, it erases them completely, like they never existed. The philosophical implications are staggering. Here's a world that might have been our sister planet, that might have supported life, that might have developed its own version of consciousness and civilization. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about planetary-scale trauma and the irreversible consequences of environmental collapse. Venus forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about our own world. How close are we to our own runaway greenhouse effect? How much can a planet change before it becomes unrecognizable? And if consciousness did once emerge on Venus, what did those final moments feel like as their beautiful world transformed into hell? Every night, when Venus appears in our sky, we're looking at our own potential future, a reminder that beauty and destruction aren't opposites, but partners in the cosmic dance of planetary evolution. If Venus is our cautionary tale about environmental collapse, then Mars represents something even more haunting. What happens when a world simply gives up? Mars is the solar system's most tragic character, a planet that once had everything going for it, and somehow lost it all. If Venus is a cautionary tale about environmental catastrophe, Mars is a ghost story about dreams deferred and potential squandered. Look at Mars today, and you'll see a cold, dusty desert with an atmosphere so thin you couldn't breathe it, temperatures that regularly drop to minus 195 degrees Fahrenheit, and dust storms that can engulf the entire planet for months. It's like looking at a once great city that's been abandoned for centuries, with only the faintest traces of what it used to be. But here's what makes Mars truly haunting. It wasn't always like this. Billions of years ago, Mars was warm, wet, and possibly teeming with life. It had a thick atmosphere, flowing rivers, vast lakes, and maybe even oceans. The geological evidence is everywhere. Ancient riverbeds carved into the landscape, mineral deposits that only form in the presence of liquid water, polar ice caps that speak to a dynamic climate system. Mars once had weather, seasons, and all the ingredients necessary for life as we know it. So what the hell happened? Mars committed slow-motion planetary suicide, and scientists are still piecing together exactly how it managed to kill itself so thoroughly. The first problem was size. Mars is about half the diameter of Earth and only 11% of our mass. This might not seem like a big deal, but in planetary terms, size matters a lot. Mars's smaller mass meant weaker gravity, and weaker gravity meant it couldn't hold onto its atmosphere as effectively. Imagine trying to keep a thick blanket wrapped around you while someone keeps pulling it away. That's Mars trying to maintain an atmosphere against the solar wind. But the real killer was Mars's magnetic field, or rather, its complete lack of one. Earth's magnetic field acts like a protective shield, deflecting charged particles from the sun that would otherwise strip away our atmosphere. Mars had a magnetic field once, generated by a molten core, but somewhere around 4 billion years ago, that core cooled and solidified. When Mars lost its magnetic field, it was like removing the roof from your house during a hurricane. The solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles from the sun, began systematically stripping away Mars's atmosphere, molecule by molecule. This process is still happening today. Every second, Mars loses about 100 grams of its remaining atmosphere to space. It's been bleeding itself dry for billions of years. As the atmosphere thinned, Mars couldn't regulate its temperature anymore. The greenhouse effect that had kept it warm disappeared, and the planet entered a death spiral of cooling and atmospheric loss. Water began to freeze, then sublimate directly from ice to vapor, escaping to space. The once flowing rivers dried up, the lakes evaporated, and Mars transformed from a blue-green world into the rust-colored desert we see today. But here's where Mars's story becomes really psychologically disturbing. It might have been aware of what was happening. Stay with me here. If Mars once harbored life, and there's growing evidence it did, then somewhere in its 4 billion year decline, there might have been a moment when Martian organisms realized their world was dying. Imagine being an intelligent species watching your planet slowly suffocate, your atmosphere bleeding away into space, your oceans turning to ice then vapor, your civilization facing inevitable extinction, not from war or asteroid impact, but from the simple physics of planetary death. The existential horror is overwhelming. Earth-based life has always feared sudden, catastrophic extinction. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, nuclear war. But Mars faced something far worse. The certainty of slow, inevitable death with no possibility of intervention or escape. Evidence suggests Mars's transformation wasn't uniform or immediate. Different regions died at different rates. There were probably lakes and rivers that persisted for millions of years after others had vanished, creating isolated pockets of habitability in an increasingly hostile world. Imagine being among the last survivors, watching the final oases disappear one by one, knowing that your species, possibly your entire biosphere, was living on borrowed time. And then there are the dust storms. Modern Mars experiences dust storms that can cover the entire planet and last for months, plunging the surface into permanent twilight. These storms are so severe, they've killed NASA rovers by blocking out the sun and depleting their solar power. But they're also Mars's way of grieving. Massive atmospheric tantrums that shake the entire planet, as if Mars is still trying to rage against the dying of the light. The most haunting aspect of Mars's story is how preventable it all seems in hindsight. If Mars had been just a little bigger, if its core had stayed molten a little longer, if its magnetic field had persisted just a bit more, any of these factors might have changed everything. Mars died from a combination of bad luck and physics, like a person who lives a healthy lifestyle, but loses the genetic lottery. Today, Mars continues its slow death march, but with a twisted sense of hope. Human missions to Mars aren't just about exploration. They're about resurrection. We're planning to terraform Mars, to give it an artificial atmosphere, to bring water back to its surface. In a sense, we're trying to perform planetary CPR on a world that's been clinically dead for billions of years. But there's something deeply unsettling about this plan. Are we trying to save Mars? Or are we just projecting our own fears about Earth's future onto its corpse? Mars serves as a constant reminder that planets can die, that habitability isn't permanent, that everything we love about our world could vanish given enough time and bad luck. The irony is exquisite. While we dream of making Mars livable again, we're actively making Earth more like Mars through climate change, pollution, and environmental destruction. We're studying a dead planet to learn how to revive it, while simultaneously killing the living one we already have. Mars is our mirror, showing us both our potential future and our possible redemption. Every Mars mission is essentially a therapy session with our own planetary mortality, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable truth that worlds are fragile, life is temporary, and consciousness might be the universe's most beautiful accident. When you look at Mars in the night sky, that small red that's been humanity's obsession for millennia, you're not just looking at another planet. You're looking at a ghost, a warning, and possibly a second chance all rolled into one rust-colored sphere hurtling through the cosmic dark. The question isn't whether we can bring Mars back to life. The question is whether we can learn from its death in time to save ourselves. But if Mars is our ghost story, then Jupiter represents something entirely different. The neighborhood bully who somehow keeps everyone alive. Jupiter is the solar system's ultimate paradox, a cosmic bully that somehow keeps everyone safe. This massive ball of gas is so large that it contains more mass than all other planets combined, and it's been throwing its weight around for billions of years like the ultimate neighborhood enforcer. But here's the twist. Without Jupiter's tyrannical presence, we'd all be dead. Picture Jupiter as that one friend who's simultaneously your protector and your worst nightmare. It's 11 times wider than Earth and 318 times more massive, with gravity so intense it can rip moons apart and fling asteroids across the solar system like cosmic fastballs. Jupiter doesn't just orbit the sun, it makes the sun wobble. The center of mass between Jupiter and the sun actually lies outside the sun's surface. In other words, Jupiter is so massive it forces our star to dance around it. But Jupiter's real superpower is its role as the solar system's cosmic vacuum cleaner and planetary bodyguard. That great red spot you see in pictures? That's a hurricane that's been raging for at least 400 years, possibly much longer. It's twice the size of Earth and generates winds up to 400 miles per hour. But that storm isn't just Jupiter showing off. It's evidence of the incredible atmospheric dynamics that make Jupiter a gravitational shepherd for our entire solar system. Here's where Jupiter's story becomes fascinatingly complex. It's both protector and destroyer, often simultaneously. Jupiter's immense gravity acts like a cosmic net, catching asteroids and comets that might otherwise hurtle toward the inner planets. Scientists estimate that without Jupiter, Earth would be hit by catastrophic asteroids roughly 1,000 times more frequently. Every time you're not dealing with a dinosaur extinction level event, you can thank Jupiter for playing cosmic defense. But Jupiter also has a dark side. Sometimes, instead of catching dangerous objects, it flings them around like a gravitational slingshot. Jupiter can take a harmless asteroid and accelerate it to terrifying speeds, turning it into an interplanetary missile. It's like having a bodyguard who occasionally throws punches at random. The psychological implications are staggering. Jupiter forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that our safety often depends on powers completely beyond our control. We like to believe we're masters of our own destiny, but Jupiter reminds us that our entire existence depends on a gas giant's gravitational mood swings. And speaking of mood swings, Jupiter's relationship with its moons reads like the most dysfunctional family drama in the solar system. It has at least 79 known moons, ranging from tiny captured asteroids to world-sized satellites. The four largest, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, are each fascinating disasters in their own right. Io is the most volcanically active body in the solar system, constantly erupting sulfur and lava because Jupiter's gravity literally squeezes the moon like a stress ball. Europa might harbor an ocean beneath its icy surface, but that ocean exists only because Jupiter's gravitational flexing generates enough heat to keep water liquid. Ganymede is larger than Mercury, but remains a moon because Jupiter refuses to let it go. These aren't just celestial bodies orbiting a planet. They're prisoners in an abusive gravitational relationship. Yet without Jupiter's gravitational influence, these moons would be cold, dead rocks floating in space. Jupiter gives them energy, geological activity, and possibly even the conditions necessary for life. It's simultaneously their captor and their life support system. The existential questions Jupiter raises are profound. Is benevolent tyranny better than chaotic freedom? Would you rather live under the protection of an unpredictable but powerful guardian, or take your chances in an unprotected universe? Jupiter doesn't give the inner planets a choice. We're all subject to its gravitational pull whether we like it or not. But perhaps the most unsettling thing about Jupiter is how it represents the arbitrary nature of cosmic power. Jupiter didn't choose to be our protector. It's just massive enough that its gravity shapes the entire solar system's architecture. There's no intelligence behind Jupiter's protection, no conscious decision to keep Earth safe. We're protected by pure accident of physics and positioning. This raises uncomfortable questions about power and responsibility. If you have the ability to profoundly affect others' lives, whether through wealth, influence, or simple circumstances, do you have an obligation to use that power responsibly? Jupiter can't be held morally accountable for its actions because it's not conscious, but humans with Jupiter-level influence over others' lives don't have that excuse. Jupiter also serves as a reminder of how precarious our cosmic situation really is. Our entire civilization exists because a gas giant happens to be in the right place, with the right mass, orbiting at the right distance. Change any of those variables, and Earth's story would be completely different, probably much shorter and far more violent. Every time you look up at Jupiter in the night sky, you're seeing our solar system's dictator, bodyguard, and cosmic lottery ticket all rolled into one massive, swirling ball of gas. It's a humbling reminder that sometimes the things that protect us are the same things that could destroy us, and that our safety often depends on forces we can neither understand nor control. The real question isn't whether Jupiter is good or bad for the solar system. The real question is what we do with the knowledge that our existence depends on cosmic powers beyond our comprehension or influence. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable truth of all. We're not just observers in this cosmic madhouse. We're the inmates running the asylum. So here we are, having toured the solar system's greatest hits of cosmic dysfunction. And what have we learned? That we're living in a neighborhood where every planet is dealing with its own brand of existential crisis, where protection comes from benevolent tyrants, and where the most beautiful things are often the most deadly. But the real plot twist is this. We're not just observers of this cosmic madhouse. We're the only known conscious participants. While Mercury spins itself into confusion, Venus dissolves in its own toxicity, Mars bleeds itself dry, and Jupiter throws its weight around unconsciously, we're the only ones who can look up the night sky and say, "This is absolutely insane, and somehow I'm part of it." That makes us either the luckiest or most cursed species in the solar system. We're conscious enough to recognize the absurdity of our situation, but powerless to change most of it. We can't give Mars its atmosphere back, can't cool down Venus, or convince Mercury to get its act together. But we can choose how we respond to living in this beautiful, terrifying, utterly improbable corner of the universe. Maybe that's the point. Maybe consciousness evolved not to solve the cosmos, but to appreciate its magnificent weirdness. Maybe our role isn't to fix the solar system, but to be the audience that finally gets the joke. So next time you're having an existential crisis at 3 a.m., remember, you're not just questioning your place in the world. You're questioning your place in the greatest cosmic comedy show ever performed. And honestly, that's exactly where you belong. The universe is crazy. We're crazy. And somehow, that makes perfect sense. What do you think? Are we the solar system's greatest success story or its most beautiful mistake? Let me know in the comments. And if this cosmic tour made you question everything, hit that like button. After all, we're all in this cosmic madhouse together.